Like it's a really awful situation, because on the one hand, the Democrats themselves are not taking on any sort of like leadership role here, and demanding a scale back of these gross, in broad daylight instances that the American government is openly celebrating. Okay. And obviously there's more to talk about. We're gonna be covering a New York Times report on the of North Korean fishermen that was conducted in a military operation in 2019, which people were privy to since 2021 and refused to acknowledge or reveal, as a matter of fact. And this obviously comes on the heels of the Trump administration's illegal against a boat that they claim was drug traffickers out of Venezuela. The American Navy has encircled the Venezuelan territorial waters, and they're conducting military operations and celebrating the fact that they're doing extrajudicial of different people that are on a boat at any given time, leaving the Venezuelan water. Now, you guys know already, I covered the first story here, and the administration is very clearly utilizing the term narco as an effort to engage in direct destabilization efforts, and maybe even in Latin American countries that it feels like are having too good of a time, I guess, whether it be Mexico or in this case, it's certainly Venezuela. They're claiming that these guys are, they're claiming that narcotics traffickers are also now or should be classified as, and as you guys know, the designation from the American State Department is one that is intentionally vague. It is created specifically so that you can do, extrajudicial murders of whoever you have declared it. It's a way to deny habeas corpus. It's a way to deny due process from people when you even apprehend them. It's a way to unjustifiably surveil people without any sort of sincere reason to do so. And now that expansion is now that definition is expanding to random brown people from Latin American countries. Of course, I'm going to start off the story with the 11 people that the Trump administration on a boat, because there was a dinghy leaving the Venezuelan coastline that had 11 people on it, and the Trump administration blew the boat up. And then they actually released a video of them blowing the boat up. And then they claimed that these were narcotics traffickers. These were people who were trafficking narcotics. Now, I covered extensively why this argument is idiotic. Number one, most of the overwhelming majority of the narcotics trafficking is not happening on that coastline and is not coming out of Venezuela. Okay, that's number one. Number two, even if you suspect a boat that is trafficking drugs, you can't kill the people on the boat. You can just as easily just seize the boat and apprehend the people on the boat and investigate whether or not they are actually trafficking drugs. Okay? That is ridiculous. There is no world in which you just go, I don't like these people, so I'm going to murder them. And last but not least, it seems as though this boat was not trafficking narcotics at all. And I think this is a terrifying precedent-setting move, because in the past, these kinds of operations, of course, took place. And we're going to talk about one of them that was recently discovered that took place in 2019. Okay. And oftentimes this kind of people living outside of the security periphery, or even inside of the security periphery of the United States empire, would just get destroyed, would just get, people would make up, people would get mad about it if they found out about it. But never before had we had a situation where the administration openly pulls the trigger, flexes that they're pulling the trigger, tells you that they don't even have the evidence, and says, what are you going to do about it? So while, Barack Obama also did his illegal drone wars, and we covered that extensively and criticized it extensively, including, but not limited to, an American citizen, okay, extrajudicially assassinating an American citizen. Barack Obama did that, which was an expansion of this collateral damage if you're even associated by blood, or if you're even in the vicinity of a strike target. If you're an American citizen and we know you're there, you're still going to get by the American government. It doesn't matter. Sucks to suck. No due process whatsoever. While that was a major escalation, it was a precedent-setting move. We have never had a situation where the government just like assassinates people and says, yeah, that's right, we did it. What the fuck are you going to do about it? Actually, yeah, we don't even have any evidence whatsoever. And I'll go so far as to say that Chelsea Manning was literally imprisoned for showing that the American government had done this. That's a big part of why Chelsea Manning, a brave whistleblower, went to prison. She literally went to prison and was tortured for revealing that the American government had done this. Okay? Now, the American government is no longer hiding that they're doing this. They're flexing that they're doing this. That is insane. Okay? You need to understand. That is insane. It's terrifying. Nathan J. Robinson from Current Affairs reports, after Trump 11 people on a boat with zero legal justification and zero evidence offered that they were members of a cartel, Democrats have, of course, fully denounced this outrageous abuse of power. Oh, wait, no, they're being silent. So they're not seen as soft on cartels. The Democrats in Congress who were quick to condemn Trump's strikes against Iranian nuclear sites have struggled to find a unified message that won't make them look soft on drug cartels. Senator Tim Kaine in the membrane, who was pushed to ensure Congress authorizes military actions, told reporters he's still digging into the legality of the strike and didn't elaborate on his concerns. Representative Ro Khanna and Senator Bernie Sanders, who are usually quick to note overuse of presidential powers, did not respond to requests for comment. I'm telling you right now, I think America is moving actively further and further into this fascist superpower position around the globe. And the Democrats are too scared or too disinterested in actually trying to claw this kind of this kind of expansion of abuse back in a way that makes sense. And because there are a million other issues that people are predisposed with, like the average voters are predisposed with, because their attention is elsewhere, the Democrat Party's compliance in this is not even seen as an issue that people as a big problem that the American people want or demand answers to. You know what I mean? Like it's a really awful situation, because on the one hand, the Democrats themselves are not taking on any sort of like leadership role here and demanding a scale back of these gross, in broad daylight instances that the American government is openly celebrating. Okay. And I think that the consequences of that expansion of abuse is going to be really bad. But not only are the Democrats not pushing back against this stuff, it's truly terrifying. And really, it's truly terrifying that like the people themselves are also kind of oblivious to everything that's going on. There's too much stuff happening. You got ICE raids, you got the economy that's in the shitter, you got Israel, and you know, people are just either tuning out of the process. You got the anti-vaxxer stuff, and you got people either tuning out of the process altogether, or it's impossible for them to pay attention to every single minutia, every single detail, because the administration is basically gish galloping fascist policies in broad daylight every single day. They're just like every other day there's a new thing that they're doing, and you're like, what the? You got the military occupying blue cities? What the hell is that? It's awful. Trump's illegal massacre of a boat full of people may not have been attacked, may not even have attacked the drug cartel, by the way. There's more updates on this article as well. The former official also said it was unusual to have 11 people manning a vessel that could easily be crewed by 2 or 3, especially since traffickers are always trying to maximize the amount of cargo space devoted to carrying drugs, not human beings. In the former official's opinion, it was more likely that the vessel was carrying migrants on a human smuggling run. It would be impossible to know for sure, however, given that any evidence of drug smuggling was destroyed in the attack. Once again, I ask you, a Democrat Party that won't stop it, what makes you think that they will stop the fascist takeover. They are not. And they are showing that they're not. And I don't know what to do about it. And even the former officials like, well, they're probably like drugs. They're not smuggling drugs. They're smuggling humans. And it's like, okay, who cares? Even if they were drug smugglers, what the do you mean? We just get to them? Like what? What are we doing? A lot of this comes from the notion that you will never be on the other side of those crosshairs, okay? But you fail to recognize that an administration, a government that doesn't care about dignifying human beings or dignifying the sanctity of humanity, okay? Recognizing the humanity of all human beings and abide by certain standards that we have set. A government that doesn't care about those people is inevitably going to do similar things to you and your loved ones as well, okay? Now, of course, this is moving along the understandable, logical trajectory, okay? This is years and years in the making. Oftentimes, like I said, the permission structure is expanded by Democrats as well. Barack Obama comes to mind. And America is comfortably filling the role of the big bad. They are openly saying, we are the villains. What the are you going to do about it? We're just going to keep our enemies. As long as we declare them to be enemies, there's nothing the world can say about it. One of the greatest examples of this is obviously the attacks directed at the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice for trying to prosecute the war criminals in the Israeli state or the Israeli state altogether for the crime of the United States of America. Instead of taking the initiative and saying, hey, as the global world police, we had to put an end to this, even though America could have stopped this from happening altogether before it even became an issue. They have spent all of their political capital, social capital, and human capital on trying to stop people from trying to stop Israel, whether it be the Houthis over in Yemen, punishing them for the crime of trying to implement a blockade to punish Israel economically for continuing to do it of the Palestinian population, spending billions of dollars blowing up the poorest country on the planet. Or here in the Western world, we're prosecuting the people who are peacefully protesting against the prosecuting and sanctioning the people that are a part of the international organs of justice. We are prosecuting and punishing people who are of Palestinian descent by refusing to offer them visas, by trying to sanction them for also investigating Israel's. We are the villains here, okay? I still have the utmost confidence in our fellow Americans to recognize right from wrong, okay? And I'm not going to entertain people saying, I don't believe you. No, Americans are first worlders. They're violent. They're abhorrent. They're demons. I can't believe that, because if I did believe that, and if I did believe that there was just like this unchangeable evil at the heart of every American, and it wasn't simply selfish, but it wasn't simply because they don't understand how these kinds of systems of violence actually impact them as well, then I wouldn't do what I'm doing right now, okay? So just remember that. But this lawlessness is out of control. Aaron Rupar reports on an interview conducted with the drunk Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
Mr. Secretary, what legal authority did the Pentagon invoke to strike that boat full of drug smugglers?
We have the absolute and complete authority to conduct that. First of all, just the defense of the American people alone. 100,000 Americans were killed each year under the previous administration because of an open border and open drug traffic flow.
Was there
that is an assault on the American people. I said we smoked a drug boat, and there's 11 narcos at the bottom of the ocean, and when other people try to do that, they're going to meet the same fate.
It's just insane. Like, I don't know. I mean, as someone who has been a commentator for many, many years, like, this level of transparently saying, like, no, we are the big bad. We are the evil people. We are the ones who knock. We are the ones who are going to keep doing this shit, and there's nothing you can do about it. And especially paired up with especially paired up with the unfortunate reality that like many Americans are actually oblivious to it or don't care about it, or the ones who do know about it like it. It feels like no change is going to come. Just got in here. Were they actually smugglers or just fishermen? So it doesn't matter, right? Even if they were literally drug smugglers, even if they were drug runners, which there's no evidence to suggest that they were, and it looks like they most likely weren't. But even if they were, it still doesn't matter. This is a completely illegal action. Okay? It is a completely illegal action. You cannot just decide that you can turn around and murder people just because you felt like it, just because you wanted a W. It is a gross expansion of American evil. It's a recognition of American evil, which I am truly fearful of, because if they do this once and they don't get any pushback whatsoever, they're going to continue doing it. They're going to do it with way higher frequency. This is something that I've been warning about for quite a while. This is like a growing fascist, international fascist movement in a lot of these liberal democracies in the Western world. It is truly, truly terrifying, because the American government is doing this, but they're not alone. Look, poll, 52% of Brits think refugees should be sent to concentration camps, prison camps. 52%. Only 35% say they should not. That is insane. 88% of Reform Party voters think refugees should be put in concentration camps. 79% of conservatives think that 79% of conservatives think that they should be put in concentration camps. The worse people's material conditions are, the more susceptible they are to do violence to others. Okay? Where they're just like, well, all of the anger and resentment I have because the trains never run on time, because like the cost of living is completely out of control, it must be because brown people are here. It must be. Because in the absence of a clear moral conviction and a message that's coming from a real anti-fascist left flank party that says it's not the refugees, it's actually the financial elite that is destroying your lives at the behest of capital, at the behest of profits. And putting these guys in concentration camps is not going to solve these problems at all. In the absence of that kind of counter messaging coming from the Labor Party, which obviously is now completely gone, right? We are bouldering towards an international fascist movement. I've been ringing the alarm bells about this for a decade now, and it is here. What is driving this embrace of fascism across liberal democracies? I know you just mentioned material conditions not improving, but curious if there's more to it. No, it's as simple and as complex as that. Okay? But that's it. I mean, this already happened. This already happened with Nazi Germany as well. This literally happened. It happened not that long ago. There are still people alive that were there when it was happening. This is a byproduct of unlimited neoliberalism, unchecked neoliberalism taking hold of every Western liberal democracy, an erosion of social safety nets that directly contribute to material harm, that directly cause a decrease in living standards that people can recognize, people do recognize, people see, and people get angry about. And in the absence of any sort of push in the positive direction coming from an anti-fascist party, a left flank party that is also completely invested and is invested in the existing hierarchies, invested in serving the masters of capital, you have the only game in town being the Reform Party and like hyper conservatives saying, well, yeah, of course you're angry. Why are you angry? Because Muslims are here. Refugees are here. And they're here to do rapes. They're here to do stabbings. It's terrifying. And the worst thing you can do in this process is to lean into these reactionary sentiments. If you are a supporter of any sort of left flank party, whether they are obviously a phony, fake liberal party like what the Labor Party has become or what the Democratic Party is, it doesn't matter. If you're a supporter, if you consider yourself to be a progressive, you consider yourself to be a liberal, consider yourself to be a leftist, if you're an anti-fascist broadly, okay, you have to ensure that your representatives understand that this is a clear-cut demand that you're making. Like, this is not just about improving first worlders' material conditions, okay? This is about ensuring that this coalition of Western liberal democracies do not go full tilt into a fascist, accelerationist, death and destruction-backed agenda and start blowing shit up with no repercussions whatsoever. Because as I have said, empires don't die quietly, okay? It doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen quietly. They don't just like fizzle out. There is a lot of destruction that comes in the process. And if you want to avoid that hardship, if you want to avoid that death and destruction, if you want to avoid that cruelty, you have to do your very best to try and put an end to it. And it's a win-win situation anyway, because while you're trying to put an end to it, you're also advocating for good things. You're advocating for healthcare. You're advocating to improve people's material standing. That is my demand. And I cannot comprehend how people don't recognize this. There's another story that I want to talk about with respect to a gross campaign that the Trump administration conducted. Okay. This was the secret mission to spy on North Korea's leader. Okay. The New York Times reports that in 2019, a group of Navy SEALs crept out of the ocean onto the shore of North Korea for a dangerous and secret mission that has never been publicly disclosed until now. Okay. How a top secret SEAL Team 6 mission in the North Korea fell apart. In 2019, Operation Greenlit by President Trump sought a strategic edge. It left unarmed North Koreans dead. Here's the video from the New York Times.
We've been reporting about the military and special operations for more than a decade. And we received a tip about a mission, frankly, outlandish, that I didn't even think was real. The mission happened in 2019. At the time, President Trump and Kim Jong-un were in the middle of high-level nuclear talks. The mission was to plant a listening device. That device could give the U.S. an edge in all of the negotiations, but it also came with substantial risks. The mission started with a nuclear submarine motoring into North Korean territorial waters. The nuclear sub stopped and released 2 mini-subs that headed into the bay. In those mini-subs is a team of Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs thought they'd be coming into a deserted shore, but there was a surprise. Nearby was a small boat with a North Korean crew. The unseen North Korean boat came close to their mini-subs, and the crew on board started talking loudly and shining flashlights right down into the water where the subs were. If the subs were discovered, they'd have no way out, and so the SEALs that were at the shore fired on the North Korean boat and killed everybody that was on it. The SEALs on shore swam to the boat to make sure everybody was dead. When they got there, they didn't find any uniforms or weapons that suggested the people were security forces or military. In fact, everything there suggested that they were civilian fishermen who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
The wrong place at the wrong time, by the way, is just North Korean fishermen off the coast of their own territorial waters. Like, it's the Navy SEALs that were in the wrong place at the wrong time, technically. You know? Oops, we came into your house and you outed us, so we had to fucking murder you.
The SEALs got out of the area unscathed. But it's hard to overstate the gravity of what happened. The United States put troops on the ground in an unpredictable dictatorship with nuclear weapons, killed civilians, and took extreme strategic risks. This was just one mission, but people within the special operations world say it's part of a broader problem that has plagued special operations for decades. There's never any real outside scrutiny that lets the public and the nation as a whole look at what went wrong. Everything remains top secret.
This was under Trump 1, and there is more details, okay? In 2019, the Trump administration directly violated international law, not only secretly sending military forces to North Korea, but murdering a group of innocent, unarmed Korean fishermen. This, of course, is, under different circumstances, a massive scandal. But a part of the reason why it won't become a massive scandal is because the Democrats knew about it since 2021 and never brought it up, never revealed this, never actually demanded answers for how they put together this special operation, because they too are complicit. Okay? You know the details now as far as like what the SEAL Team 6 did. Okay? Of course, as Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs reports, needless to say, if an enemy country did this to us, we'd call it an act of terrorism and denounce it in the strongest terms, because it would be an act of terrorism. We'd call the country barbaric, inhuman, but the U.S. claims the right to kill whoever the U.S. wants, whenever the U.S. wants, without anyone being allowed to criticize it. Of course, the Trump administration found that the rules of engagement allowed it to kill unarmed fishermen, and they never told Congress, despite having a legal obligation to do so. Will Trump be held accountable for this flagrant violation of international law? Of course not. This was planned under Obama in 2013, but he backed out due to risk. Trump came in and used old intel to ram ahead and try to prove it. Try to prove its competence. I can't, like, this is a separate story. Remember, this is a new story that came out of an old operation that SEAL Team 6 did. Nowadays, the Trump administration is not even hiding that they're doing this kind of stuff, because they're just openly fucking assassinating people on boats and saying, yeah, we're going to do it. Fuck you going to do about it. Okay? The aborted SEAL mission prompted a series of military reviews during Trump's first term. They found that the killing of civilians was justified under the rules of engagement, and that the mission was undone by a collision of unfortunate occurrences that could not have been foreseen or avoided. The findings were classified. The Trump administration never told leaders of key committees in Congress that oversee the military and intelligence activities about the operation of the findings. Government officials said, in doing so, the Trump administration may have violated a federal law, said Matthew Waxman, a law professor at Columbia University who served in national security positions under the former President George W. Bush. Many of the people involved in the mission were later promoted. Ken Klippenstein reports that members of Congress knew about this since 2021, but never told the public. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Mark Warner, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, Devin Nunes, and of course, Marco Rubio, who is now the Secretary of State. How in the actual fuck was it justified? I mean, you have to understand, like, if you're the bad guys, all matter of like internal laws that you have created are designed in a way to always find legal grounds for why you did something that is transparently illegal. This story about a failed 2016 SEAL Team 6 operation from Joshua Hunt at GQ Magazine, he adds on to it about what we have done in the past that's similar. This story about a failed 2019 SEAL Team 6 operation in North Korea is shocking. America's most elite special forces unit rehearsed for months because every move needed to be perfect, but had no contingency for being discovered other than to waste unarmed civilians. The hubris is astonishing. We did something like this back in 2005. The Navy SEALs reasoned. So surely it will work again in 2019 under a different North Korea regime with different capabilities. Even for SEAL Team 6, the mission would be extraordinarily difficult. SEALs who were more used to quick raids in places like Afghanistan or Iraq would have to survive for hours in a frigid seas, slip past security forces on land, perform a precise technical installation, and then get out undetected. Getting out undetected was vital. In Mr. Trump's first term, top leaders in the Pentagon believed that even a small military action against North Korea could provoke catastrophic retaliation from an adversary with roughly 8,000 artillery pieces and rocket launchers aimed at approximately 28,000 American troops in South Korea and nuclear-capable missiles that could reach the United States. But the SEALs believed they could pull off this mission because they had done something like this before. In 2005, SEALs used a mini-sub to go ashore in North Korea and leave unnoticed. According to people familiar with the mission, the 2005 operation carried out during the presidency of George W. Bush has never before been reported publicly. I need you to understand, there is a reason why we don't entertain implementing Article 5 or bringing Ukraine into NATO. That is because Russia, the foreign adversary in this conflict, the belligerent in this conflict, is a nuclear-armed nation. North Korea is also a nuclear-armed nation. Agitating nuclear-armed nations by conducting unimaginably risky operations like this with very little upside and massively consequential downsides like nuclear holocaust, mutually assured destruction, and a potential nuclear holocaust is insane. So not only is this morally repugnant, America behaving like gangsters, like criminals that are not accountable to anything and anyone and can do whatever kind of cruelty to random innocent civilians all around the world so that they can get like somewhat of an advantage in the negotiations process rather than try to deal with foreign adversaries as like sovereign nation states. We try to do this kind of trickery. We end up making these incredibly costly and incredibly dangerous mistakes. And someone in the chat said, wasn't North Korea testing or sending nukes or sending warnings to Japan around this time? Once again, remember, this helps you perhaps understand why, from their perspective, they're doing stuff like this, because Japan is seen as, understandably, for foreign adversaries, is seen as an American island, an American-occupied island with American weapons, trained on not only North Korea, but also on China as well, another American adversary, a nuclear-armed nation. So from their perspective, they're like, we have to posture as a matter of deterrence, as a matter of demonstrating our sovereignty. And yet America still violates said sovereignty. So the argument here is twofold. On the one hand, obviously, this is morally repugnant and completely unacceptable. It's a war crime by international standards. But of course, when America conducts war crimes, no one can say anything because the United States of America is the hegemonic superpower. But it's also incredibly dangerous for American citizens as well. You're just like, you're gambling with the lives of potentially millions of Americans by doing these things. So that's where we're at. And since then, the situation has obviously worsened. Like I said, now that we have, now that this administration is using a new method of radical transparency, or I guess you could call it shamelessness, they're not even trying to shelter people from the truth. They're just saying it's the law of the jungle. And the people that are in the crosshairs, when they recognize that America is a lawless and evil country that can assassinate their citizens on a whim, eventually they're going to get together. And eventually they're going to understandably try to fight back. What do you think happens then? Even if America, quote unquote, wins in the end with all of our military prowess, with all of our might, how consequential will that be for you and your loved ones? Even if you are only looking at this from the perspective of utter selfishness, why do you think this will improve your lives? What good is it that we are increasingly behaving in a belligerent, militant manner around the world?